Is that time once again, folks? It's time for the Tom Lacey Sports Hour, and here is your host, Tom Lacey.
Just want to say good morning to everyone. Hopefully everyone is listening. My two guests today are two Division I teammates. There's actually one more, the Finneys from Peru, but we have Bill Brennan and Mark McIntyre, both from Ticonderoga. And let's hear from both of them real quickly. Mac, why don't you start? One thing I wanted you to start with is one thing we didn't get from you. Well, let me say one thing. Are you guys there? Can you hear me?
Lace, yes, this is Mac.
Okay. Did you guys hear that last song at all?
No.
Oh, it was Billie Jean, and I just...
Not my girl.
I just want to recall that I think Mark won the Wet Buns contest on that song at Mother's one time.
I did. I'm still holding that $50 bill.
There's going to be some, funny stuff, and there's going to be a lot of serious stuff. So I think Mark knows that already. The one thing I want you both to start out with, and it doesn't matter who starts, is talk about your families, because your parents, your brothers and sisters, your wife and kids, and Mark, why don't you start first?
So in terms of how do you want me to go about just an introduction, or
just what they mean to you, what they've done. How much of an inspiration, and are you still staying in touch with brothers and sisters? And talk about your wife and your daughter, what sport she plays, and so on.
And you're gonna prompt me with some questions.
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Talk about, first of all, your brother who played at Ticonderoga. Do you guys stay in touch with him, or do you stay in touch with him?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm in touch with all my family, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Talk about your parents.
Well, my mom and dad, they moved me to Ticonderoga, or moved the family to Ticonderoga from San Diego when I was 9 years old. And you want me just to get into that now? We're not on right now. Are we on?
Yes, we're on.
Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah, we moved to Ticonderoga when I was 9 years old. Beach kid to upstate New York, and great move. They've just wanted to get us in a place that was going to be a wholesome place to grow up. Where we bought a farm over the phone, had never seen it, so it was a great opportunity for my parents to get us out of the city and into some place that. Would be a good spot for us to raise a family. So yeah, they've been super instrumental in everything, in the opportunities they've created for my entire family, me and both my brothers.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys have some sort of a horse kind of competition?
We did.
Okay.
We did, actually. Yeah, when we moved back there, my mom was a bit of a horse lady. She'd grown up in Queens, New York, and she worked at the stables in Central Park, and had an affinity for horses. So we started buying a horse. Before we knew it, we had 40 horses, and we were running a girls' summer horseback riding camp where we would host 40 girls for 8 weeks over the summer up there. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Bill, let's talk about your family a little bit. Your parents, talk about them. Hopefully they're still alive. And
so my parents are both originally from upstate New York. My dad grew up in Mineville, and a few miles between Ticonderoga and Plattsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Fordham, where he played baseball and did pre-med track. He went to Georgetown for dental school and served in the U.S. Air Force afterwards. He was never stationed in Plattsburgh Air Force Base, but he was in the Air Force. And my mother came from Amsterdam, New York, down around Albany, and they met in New York City. And my dad ran a dental practice in Ticonderoga for over 53 years. In fact, Brian Cross, great player from Mariah and the legendary coach from Mariah, his wife Kelly worked with my dad, was one of his key office people for 35 years, I think it was. So we lived in that area, and it was a great place to grow up. And unfortunately, my parents have passed away in the last few years at the ripe old age of 86. So for the last few years, we've been dealing with a lot of elder care and the sadness and sickness of aging for people. But they're wonderful parents, and I learned so much from them and owe so much to them. Very supportive of all of us kids, and certainly in our athletic endeavors. So.
Do you have any brothers or sisters that you stay in touch with?
Yeah, I have an older sister who lives out in Cody, Wyoming. Kathleen is both a dentist and a lawyer. And my brother Terry, like myself, has an MBA. He lives in Nashville, New Hampshire. He played high school basketball on the same team that Mark played on, so he was a couple of years behind me. I think Mark was right in between us. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, you were a year older. Terry was a year younger.
Yeah. Mark, do you remember him?
Oh yeah. I'm in touch with Terry. Matter of fact, there's a text string. A bunch of the guys that are a year younger had a text string, and they looped me in on it a couple of years ago. It takes a bunch of time, almost as much time as that Plattsburgh text string. It's good stuff. It's good stuff, and it's a similar vibe. Yeah, it's great to catch up and see what everybody's doing periodically.
At 8:40, Coach Brissett's going to call, and he's going to call my cell phone, and I'm just going to put it on the air. You're going to be able to hear what he says, and then you'll hang up, and then you guys can make your comments. We're still working on some technology problems here, and we'll eventually fix that, but you'll be able to hear what he has to say about both of you. He was going to write something. He called me last night, and he said, well, I was writing forever, and my wife said, nah, you better call instead. So he is such a great guy. One thing he did say, and I'm going to sneak this in there, he said he'd like to hear more from Bill. And he hears from Mark quite a bit, but he misses Bill, he said. So I know he does have cancer, and so Bill, why don't you give him a call one of these days?
Sure, I'll have to track down his number.
Okay. I'll share it with you, Bill.
Yeah. Okay. So both of you, I just want to know your top 3 personal inspirations, people, your top 3, and we'll start with Mark. And probably, if you say it's your parents.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, that's a tough one. Well, parents. It's going to be all, primarily family.
Of course.
I'm inspired by my daughter. I'm inspired by my wife. She went through some medical stuff a year ago, and just some couple of serious brain surgeries, and just to see how she kind of has rebounded from that, and her mindset and her attitude over it could be woe is me. She lost some vision, some memory, but she has just carried on like it was part of what comes, and I'm going to embrace it and take the lessons from it.
That's very nice. So, Bill, any inspirations from that you have? Just maybe name 1 or 2. Personal.
Yeah, besides my parents, I would say my wife. My wife lost both of her parents by the age of 10, and she very easily could have come a statistic. A lot of people would, and I think when that happens to people, you sometimes either become entitled to the world owes you something, or I can give something to the world, and she's a very talented, kind, living, giving person. I also am inspired by some famous people like Mandela, who were forces for good in the world that bring people together for betterment, even though a lot of bad stuff has happened in their life. Gandhi, Mandela, people like that. Lincoln, after the Civil War, saying, let him up easy. You would think Reconstruction would have been a whole lot different if he had lived. So
sure,
I'm inspired by some historical figures, too.
I'm going to start off with a comment from Neil Fassett. And I'm not sure, Bill, if you know Neil. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I played against Neil in high school. I think he played for St. John's, maybe.
Okay. Well, he
was
said,
a good ball player. Seemed like a very good guy, too.
Yeah. He said, "Morning, guys. I was a few years behind Bill, but always admired him. Great player. Question for my buddy Mac. You may recall in 1983 beating St. John's your senior year when I was a junior. I believe you set the record for taking the most free throws in a CVAC game and wearing the biggest cast like wrap on your thigh during the game. Care to comment on that game, and if there's any truth you're related to the referees?" That's from Neil Fassett.
Yeah, I was at the line a bunch that game. I think it shot almost 30 free throws. Tell Neil he should move his feet and not reach in. Neil's a great player. Now that was I think that was their plan. No easy shots, and it was a great game, and we were fortunate to come out on top.
Yeah. I want to know each of your best games. What?
Why don't you go ahead, Mark?
Yeah, I would have to say it was probably that one because it was it was a CVAC championship game. We were struggling a bit.
Okay, well, hold on for a second. I'm going to interrupt you, Mac. We got Coach Bissett calling right now. Okay, I'm going to put you guys on. Sorry about that, and we'll finish that.
It's me.
Okay, Coach. Here he is.
Hi. Okay, here I am.
Say,
hey, Coach.
Okay, start talking now?
Yep, start talking.
Okay. This is Bud Brissett. I was the basketball coach at Ticonderoga between the years of 1978 and 1988, 10 years in that district. I was hired as a school counselor there, but I believe the real reason was my record in Section 2 as head basketball coach at a little school called Sharon Springs. The kids there won 5 Class D championships in 8 years. And they, at that time, teams that won their sectional title were allowed to play up a level. We played the always C champions, and we won 3 out of 6 of those in those years. My first year at Ticonderoga was abysmal. We only won 1 game. We had this player in the 8th grade though, whom we all thought was pretty special. He was growing awfully fast, and he was having some problems with his knees. I believe he had Osgood-Schlatter's disease at the time. And so, although I felt that he could probably compete with the kids that I had on the team at that time, he was that good as an 8th grader. Of course, that was Bill Brennan. As a sophomore, he dominated. In a game that year in Ticonderoga, Bill went up for a shot under the basket against Bill Sutton at Plattsburgh High School and scored, completely dominating Bill the rest of the game. And Bill was one of the premier centers of the time. At the time, Bob Diedrich, my JV coach, was sitting next to me, and I said to Bob, "Bill Sutton, meet Mr. Bill Brennan." A year later, we beat Plattsburgh for the first time in 25 years on a basket by, guess who? Bill Brennan.
Wow.
We also went on to beat Saranac for the first time in 28 years. Mark McIntyre, we used to call him Mac, was a year behind Bill in school, and the two of them went head-to-head in practice all the time. Extremely intense. Both of them, I would say, were alpha kind of players. They wanted to dominate, and they got better by the way they played each other. Both players work extremely hard all the time. They went to camps with me. I think the camp that helped them the most, because I'm 5'7", and I was a guard, and big men, I didn't have a lot of their moves down. So at a basketball camp out near Skenevis, New York, I met a guy by the name of Don Flewelling. He was the basketball coach at Oneonta State, and he ran a camp there called the Big Man's Camp. And he also had point guards there. And they, of course, worked on distributing the basketball and things like that. But both Mark and Bill came back from that camp and said, "Wow, Coach, what a camp." Every one of my point guards after that, and every one of my centers, went to the Big Man's Camp. And I think that helped us out an awful lot.
Wow.
Mark followed Bill. We had some huge games against a team from South Glens Falls. They were ranked number 1 in the state for B schools, and we lost down there by 1 point on foul shots. Then they came to our gym, standing room only, televised. The game was at 7:30. The gym was full at 5 o'clock, and we beat them. Once again, it was the emergence of Bill, and Mark McIntyre played a huge role in that game too. He was starting to come on. One of the things that I will say about the two was that one was strong and played, he could move people, and the other one played with a great deal of finesse. Bill was not surrounded by great shooters, and he had a kid like Steve Plouffe that moved out of town, was in his class, and Steve became the Rosoran scoring leader. He also had another kid, a Bohoric boy, who moved to Maine. His father worked in the mill here, IP, and he became the state scoring champion for the state of Maine. So Bill, we didn't have all the pieces together with Bill. Good kids, worked hard, but it was Bill was the name of the game when he played. Bill, we ran a North Carolina offense, and Bill spent a lot of time under the basket. In desperation, a lot of times we'd come up the court and they'd be clogging the middle, so Bill would shoot. He was an awfully good shooter from the right corner, I thought, and the right side of the court. And he worked extremely hard at everything he did. He was almost like married to basketball, really was. And Mark, same way. They were both outstanding individuals. Bill went to prep school and then on to the University of Vermont, where he played all the time, full scholarship. And Mark was at Plattsburgh, and then his folks moved to Arizona, and he soon followed them. Although he had suffered a terrible knee injury at the end of his senior year, and slowed him down a little bit, and he made the team at Arizona State as a walk-on and played. So, yes, little Bud Brissett had some great players in Ticonderoga, New York, and thanks to them, you're talking to me today. Not to me, to them.
Okay.
And love them both, and they both are outstanding individuals, and they carried on the work ethic that they learned in practice at our school. Ask them about running the stairs, or ask McIntyre about me telling him you can't out-jump this kid from Voorheesville. They ran a tap play, okay? You can't out-jump him. Guess what? He did. And, and that C-sectional game against St. John's, Mark was 14 for 14 from the foul line. Unbelievable. Didn't miss a shot. And we're, very proud of all of those kids. And the kids that followed, I will just tell you one anecdote. John Conowitz and I didn't always get along, okay? But we ended up being really good friends in the end. I patterned my whole career after a guy in Section 2 called Bill Higgins. And Bill had a kid from Whitehall called Joe Greco.
Yep,
Joe
I heard him.
Greco went on to UVM and was a star there. And just like Bill, Joe did the same thing. And I'm sure that Bill was just as proud of him. I ended up being a superintendent for 15 years, and that's what Bill Higgins did. So I'm proud of my career. I'm proud of all my kids. I had some wonderful kids after that. The other anecdote I'd tell you is we played Sable for the CBAC championship, and Bill's brother was playing for me then, Terry, and John told me before the game, you can't beat Sable, but you have no guards. And guess what? We killed them.
Wow.
We
That's
did.
great.
Yeah. And the kids played great that night. So
Okay, Coach.
those two guys were the cornerstone. They were the foundation for us having any kind of a basketball record in Ticonderoga. And I thank them both. God bless them.
Thank you so much for calling. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You guys want to comment on that?
Yeah, well, go ahead.
He won't be able to hear. He can hear now because he hung up.
I would say Coach Brissett has a really good memory. That's wonderful and very kind of him to say all the things he said about Mark and myself. And, much like what you're doing with the kids from the North Country, Tom, with your camp and with your radio show and bringing them to the Rucker Park and everything, Coach Brissett, when he walked into Ticonderoga, he's right. He inherited a mess. Coach Mike Vigliotti had a championship team probably 8 or 10 years before that, and Mike was a very good coach. But the basketball program in Ty had fallen on hard times. And he did, Coach Brissett came in, and like Mark and I were talking before we were on the air, he opened the gym, in the summertime and brought kids in and got them playing basketball again. And Brian Cross does that at Mariah. You're doing that with these kids at camp. You got to get kids started in basketball young and teach them the lessons of athletics, and he did a great job with that. And the 10 years that he was there, Ty had outstanding teams and some really good players, not just myself and Mark, but a lot of our teammates. We had some really good teammates, and Coach Brissett laid the foundation for all that. So
Mark?
Yeah, I'll reiterate a lot of what Bill said. We were talking prior to getting on, and Coach Brissett going in there, opening the gym, I feel like we started running the same offense from 8th grade on at that point. So it just became a program everybody wanted to be a part of, right? It was if you were playing sports in Ticonderoga, you really wanted to play basketball. The fans were into it. I mean, we were sending multiple spectator buses to every game. Nobody wanted to come play in our gym. So, and I think what Coach did, and then Bill's success. Everybody, Bill was an inspiration for me. I'm like, the coach was talking about a strong guy and a finesse guy. I was not the strong guy. Bill was a man, and I was, I was probably 6'4", $165. So, I had to play with finesse at that time. Didn't have a choice, but yeah, I looked up to Bill. I mean, Bill, worked hard at his game, and always fought. So, and Coach was right. I mean, we had some scrappy practices, and and he encouraged it. There was times where guys were rolling on the floor. I mean, practices oftentimes were tougher than games.
Yeah.
Who was your toughest teammate that you had? I'm trying to remember his name. He's really tough kid. Played at North Country.
Gary Manning.
Yeah. Did you guys play? Did you play with him?
We both did. Gary was in my class, and Gary was tough as nails and a good athlete. Anything he tried, he was good at. I mean, but he worked hard at it, and he was a tough kid. He liked to compete.
Oh,
yeah, Gary was a good athlete. He had length. Like Mark was saying, he was tough. I'm sure it's the same way in Plattsburgh, but the kids in Ty were tough. My junior year, Dennis Murat cut his foot wide open in an ice auger accident before a game, ice fishing, and came and played the damn game. And then went to the hospital and get stitched up. So Jimmy Kent was a cross-country runner. Tom LaPointe was a very good presence in the post, a shot blocker. Kent Pulliam, Mike Corbo. We had some really good teammates that worked hard. Melvin Charbonneau played tough defense and rebounded well. We had a lot of three-sport athletes, so it wasn't just me, it wasn't just Mark. There were a lot of other guys that rounded things out nicely for us and were great teammates and great guys. But toughness was definitely one of the things that, defense wins championships, and we certainly tried to do that.
Mm-hmm. Mark, I didn't get a lot of your stats. I couldn't find them. Were you MVP of the league your senior year, first team All-Star, or?
I was not. I missed a chunk of my senior year with an injury to start the year off. I was first team CBAC All-Star. I think Angelo was player of the year.
Angelo
He
Sutton?
was, yeah. Okay. Angelo was, and you and Gary Manning were both first team, I believe, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right, Bill.
Do you remember injuring your knee? How did it happen?
It happened. It was a preseason. We were just playing in the gym, and where there was some adults playing in there too. And I took a knee to right above my knee, and it ended up being I bled into the muscle, calcium deposits, and then the muscles adhered together. So I just needed to get a lot of treatment and stuff to break that calcium up, or I was going to tear muscles. So
wow.
But yeah, that's it was preseason. So I missed. I don't think I played until January. Sometime.
Mm-hmm. When you played in January, how did it feel? Were you able to contribute and at least?
It was. Yeah, I was. I still remember my first game back. I was super excited to play. So yeah, it was one of those games. I think Coach Brissett gave me a half, and but yeah, had a good game and felt like, all right, here we go.
If Coach Brissett is listening, Fuzzy Brissett wanted to make a comment. He said that, does Coach Brissett or either you guys remember when Kevin Quinn of St. John's hit a buzzer beater at St. John's to beat you guys?
Can't forget it. I knew this was coming up.
Yeah, we were 23-3 that year, and that was one of the three. So yeah, that one's still there.
Stayed away from the corner. People draped all over him. Came off the Raptors. Nothing but the bottom at the buzzer.
Would it have been a three, or was it deep?
Oh no, yeah, it was deep. It was pretty deep.
There was no 3-point line then, but yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Bill's stats, and he was captain both junior and senior seasons. As a sophomore, he averaged 13 points a game, and he had a head-to-head matchup with John Thompson. Mark, do you remember John Thompson from MAI?
I remember John, MAI guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Played with Johnny Flynn and Jeff, I think Jeff Mohammed, yep.
And Bill had 29 points on John Thompson, who was a senior and a very good player. During his junior year, he beat Plattsburgh High School for the first time in 20 years. Bill and Angelo Sutton, as well as really good point guard Larry Moskowitz, played for Plattsburgh High School, and Bill scored 25 in that game, including the buzzer beater for the win. Wow. Do you remember that shot, Bill?
Oh, yeah. I'll never forget that one. That was one of the games of a high school career that's etched in your memory. It was it was a special thing for Ticonderoga, and it was a special thing for our fans. The gym went crazy. Johnny Pellerin was doing tumbles and backflips, and people were picking Coach Brissett up in the air. And for a small town like Ticonderoga, it was really something. So we were glad to finally beat the big city of Plattsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. We struggled, like Coach said. It was not a great program for 7 or 8 years. We had a little run prior to that. Billy mentioned where it was. They had a good. When I first moved to Ticonderoga, they had a pretty decent team, but this was new stuff, new grounds to be beating some of these bigger schools, and the school sizes were, I think, significantly different back then. So
definitely
it was kind of a big deal. And once it started, you're a Plattsburgh High guy, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I ever lost to Plattsburgh High.
And Plattsburgh was a damn good team too. That's the amazing part.
Yeah.
I mean, they were loaded. They had the Suttons. They had Larry Moskowitz, and they had a kid named Eric Hassenplug from years ago. And they were good. So to beat them was, we were pretty thrilled.
I have to say something though. I've never lost to Ticonderoga either as a player, so I have to throw that one in there. Okay, Mark.
That's not on us. Okay,
I know. Bill also played in the Empire State Games, but you both played in the big tournament in Plattsburgh called the PBA tournament. There was some great talent in that. Bill, you have a story about that. I want you to tell it.
Yeah, so I ended up at the University of Vermont thanks to Plattsburgh. I was being pretty heavily recruited by two SUNY schools, Plattsburgh and Potsdam. And the coaching staff at Plattsburgh invited me up to work at their camp, and I really, I was a 17-year-old guy. I wasn't very worldly, and I said, well, what does that entail? And they said, well, you come up during the day and you teach the young kids to play basketball, and you get paid for it, and then at night you get to play against the older guys, the college guys. And as a young player, you always want to play against older people whose games are more developed. So I did that for a week or two, and they said, hey, we putting together this team in this PBA tournament. Would you like to play? And I said, well, what's that all about? And they said, oh, these guys are 25 and 30 years old. Some of them have played college ball. Some of them played Division I ball and all this stuff.
Professionally, too.
Yeah, professionally. So I said, sure, I'll play. So basically the Plattsburgh State guys, Paul Einsman and people like that played on the team. I don't remember exactly who else, but I remember Paul Einsman because his brother played against us. I think he was an MAI kid. And anyway, I played in this. We played 3 games. I think it was either the first or second game. I got it going, and I was a 17-year-old kid, and I got it going. I ended up with 17 points in the game. So I come across the lane on this move, and I pull up for a jump shot. I'm 6'5", 193 pounds, and this big dude, 6'7", 250, hits me right in the chest with a forearm as I'm fully extended for the shot. No call, nothing. So I said, you son of a gun, and like, Mark and I were saying, you grew up in Ticonderoga, you learn to be tough. And so and not back down from anybody athletically. So he comes down the other end, and I said, okay. I give him a shot right back. And afterwards, they win the game. Unfortunately, we lost by a few points. I had to go across town, Plattsburgh, and drop somebody off at a shopping mall or something like that. I'm coming back in the car. I pull into the parking lot, and there's literally one parking spot left. And who's sitting right there on the curb, right next to that parking spot, but the big guy who hit me with the forearm. And he's sitting there with no shoes on, and he's drinking beer. And I thought, oh, God, what is this all about?
Typical
I
Plattsburgh.
get out of the car. Yeah, I get out of the car, and he says to me, is it true what they say about you? I thought he was going to beat me up or something, And I said, sir, I have no idea what they say about me. He says, is it true you're only 17 years old? And I said, yes, sir, I'm 17 years old. I had an October birthday. He said, well, you got a lot of game for a 17-year-old kid. I said, thank you, sir. Good game. You guys played well. You deserve to win. And then he looked at me for a second, and he said, would you be interested in playing for the University of Vermont? I didn't think about it for 2 seconds. I said, no, probably not. And he said, why not? And I said, well, I only live like 50 miles from there, and they've showed absolutely no interest in me. Why would I be interested in them if they're not interested in me? He says, well, I'm pretty sure they're interested in you. And I said, well, why would you say that? He said, I'm the associate head coach.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's how I started being recruited at the University of Vermont. It was too late in the season; they had already given up their scholarships, which is why I went to Worcester Academy and played for Tom Blackburn, the legendary coach. Rick Carlisle played for him too. He was a wonderful coach. And so Mike Riley was that guy's name. Wonderful man. Unfortunately, died of cancer recently. Mike Riley was one of the assistants, and the other guy was somebody you might have heard of before, Stan Van Gundy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Stan and Mike were the ones that recruited me to the University of Vermont. And in typical college assistant coaching fashion, by the time I arrived on campus, they had moved on to other things in life. But I would never have ended up at the University of Vermont if I hadn't played in the PBA tournament in Plattsburgh.
That's great.
That's a great story. I'd never heard that before.
Mark, what's your biggest memory of the PBA tournament?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, one year we had a pretty good team in there. I think we had John Schweitz, Coleman Harley. God, there was another kid from West Virginia, Wade. I can't remember. Anyway, we had a pretty good team, and we were in the finals playing against Mike Dean, Keith Saplicki, Larry Parker, Drew Skonberg, that crew there, and we had them dead. Or Carlisle was on that team too. Anyway, yeah, we had them dead to rights, and we had a couple of shaky calls. So I feel like Dean was buying all the beer for the rest of that game. Yeah, and you know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I do.
One of those games I got a couple of mystery calls, but yeah, that was fun to be competing at that level. I just love the energy out there with when the game's close. It's fun to a blowout's are fun, but it's nothing like when it's all right. Hey, we're tied. We got 3 minutes to go. This is fun.
Yes,
right?
It was.
So, and those were the games.
Yeah. Jeff Holmes has a question
this
for.
Is a side note, Tom. People might not know this, but Keith Saplicki was a hell of a basketball player from Brill.
I know all about.
He was the last guy cut by the Lakers, and believe it or not, he married a gal that played. Chris Gladue is her name. They've been married for 30-something years. She played basketball at the University of Vermont as well, so they got a lot of basketball in their family.
Jeff Holmes.
Yeah, Keith was a heck of a player even at that point.
Jeff Holmes has a question for Bill, and it's really quick. He said, did Mike Riley pass away? He was wondering about Mike Riley. Do you know Mike Riley?
Yeah. Unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago. He was a wonderful man and one of the most positive attitudes of any human being you'll ever meet in life. He had brain cancer, and he had surgery on it, and the odds of that type of cancer are very, very low, and he survived over 10 years with it, I believe personally because of his unbelievable attitude. But yeah, he died a couple of years ago, unfortunately.
Okay, a couple other things I want to talk about. We're going to get into some funny stuff, if you guys don't mind, and Mark knows me pretty well. First of all, I want to talk about Fordham again. Bill, you said your dad went to Fordham, or my father, who Mark knows pretty well, also was from Brooklyn, and he said he went to Fordham as well. But my father said he went through the front door and right out the back right away. So this one, I had to throw that one in there.
Yeah.
So, Maceo Dubose. Bill, do you know Maceo?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh, okay. Mark knows him well. He's not going to ask serious questions, so you guys don't even have to answer this. But he wanted to know who you both took to the prom. And did you guys wear purple tux?
Purple underwear.
Okay. Do you guys remember who you took to the prom? He had to ask that. No.
Yeah, I remember. I remember not even going to plan to go to the junior prom, and I'm not going to use the girl's name, and I'll tell you why. But there was a girl that was pretty popular in our class, and unfortunately nobody asked her to the prom. So some of the other women in the class apparently scouted out which guys were already going to the prom or whatever, and they approached me and asked me if I would ask her to the prom so she would go. So
that's so
I
nice.
was trying to be kind. I did that, but I don't want to, embarrass her by saying she didn't have a prom date. So
that's very nice. Mac, I'm sure you had.
Yeah, I remember. I
You're not going to give up the name, though, right?
Yeah, probably not. I took a girl that from my class that used to work out at the farm in the summer.
Okay.
Another horse girl.
All right. Jim Kent. Bill, you know Jim Kent, right?
Yeah, Jim Kent is a dear friend of mine. He played basketball with us, yeah.
Yeah, he wrote a very long email, and I'm going to read some of it. I believe James Madison was also who ended up going against a Bills freshman or sophomore year in college. Did you guys play against James Madison? You also played against Villanova when they won the national championship, right? That's what he said in here.
Yeah, we did in '85. Yeah, I guarded in Pinckney, and we played them in Burlington and sold out Patrick Gym. Rolly Massimino was a Vermont grad, and he was the coach there, and he was an excellent coach, obviously. And there's kind of a funny, quick story. My dad went to Georgetown to dental school, and my mother was one of those people that loved watching her kids play basketball. And since we had played Villanova, she had seen them in person. Villanova was on that magical run.
Yes.
Ended up shooting 75% from the floor in the championship game. Never should have beat Georgetown with Patrick Ewing, but they did. And at the end of the night, my dad went to get into bed, and my mother went to go give him a kiss, and he said, "This is the Georgetown side of the bed. Get back over on the Villanova side of the bed." She was rooting for Villanova. He wasn't happy with her about that.
How close was that game against Villanova? Was it close?
I'm sorry?
How close was the game when you guys played Villanova at UVM? Did you play tough?
Yeah, no, I think Howard Hudson had a really good game. He was a great player that I played with out of New York City. Matt Thompson was a good buddy of mine. He was a great, great player. Matt was as close to being a pro as you could be. Just a great athlete, 6'7", run, jump, twist, and everything. He had a really good game. We were outmatched because they were really good. They had Harold Presley and Dwayne Presley, and they had
the McLean boys.
They had the McLeans. They also had Eddie Pinckney. But I always kind of laughed about this. And Tom, you being an official, you'll get a kick out of this. But any good coach will tell a player, be careful with the fouls. If you get a little touch foul, it can change the dynamic of a game. And, you're going to have some bad calls go against you in a game, like Mark was saying earlier. And
sure.
I was 6'5", and I was really strong. I weighed 235 pounds, but I was just jacked with muscle at that point. And so I was basically, being physical with Eddie Pinckney, who had me by 5 inches. He was 6'10". And I got one of those little ticky-tack bad call fouls on me, and right before the half, I picked up my third foul. So Rolly Massimino, being the good coach that he is, he goes into the halftime, he gets the stat sheet and looks and says, I got a 6'10" guy being guarded by a 6'5" guy, and my 6'10" guy has only got 2 points. We're going right into the post to start the second half.
Wow.
And, I had to play really cautiously, and Pinckney ended up getting 15 on me in the game, but I always laughed because he got 16 on Ewing in the championship game. So I said I held him to less than Patrick Ewing did. That's my little humor.
Wow.
Love it.
Mac, at Arizona State, can you name a couple of your teammates that made the NBA? Anyone?
A couple guys. Well, Isaac Austin and Steve Beck got drafted by it, but he didn't stick.
Okay.
Had a little bit of time with the Suns, but that was it. The league was loaded that year, though.
Sure.
That was like I said, I had great floor seats and all the Gatorade I could drink. But it was. We had Reggie Miller was at UCLA. Gary Payton was Oregon State. Steve Kerr, Sean Elliott, U of A.
That must have been so much fun.
Kevin Johnson at Cal.
Yep.
It was a lot. It was a lot of fun. So.
I got something from John McDonald, who I think you both know. He said, "Thanks, Tom. Hope all's well with you. I will be nice, but let me know what a great time to play ball in Ticonderoga." And they were they were two that really got the run started in the 1980s. Mac and I were the 1983 Class C Section 7 championship game, where he made 21 out of 25 free throws, and that's a one that Neil was talking about, because unselfish guys like me would feed him in the posts. I never played with Bill for Ty, but played hours and hours, or pick up with him with his younger brother Terry. Played against him, certainly made me a better player. See if he remembers, but I had to guard him. I would tell him I was going to foul him out of the game, and he better not call it. I'm not sure if you remember that. That's to Bill from John.
Yeah, Johnny is a really good guy. I've known his whole family my whole life. I'm sure Mark has known him for an awful long time too. His family is, sort of prominent in Ticonderoga, and his dad is a district attorney for years. His mother was my kindergarten teacher, Ann McDonald. She's a Burley from Ty originally, and John was a good athlete himself. He was, I believe, a 3-sport athlete. He was a good tight end for the Ty football team. He's very close with my brother Terry, and
he was longtime superintendent of schools at Ticonderoga as well.
Really?
He was, yeah. In fact, I think it was the Plattsburgh Press-Republican that did an article on him years ago about being homegrown superintendent kind of thing. And the interesting part is he was very close to my dad, and my dad absolutely adored John and really respected him, and I think it was mutual, because my father was the head of the school board in Ticonderoga for over 30 years, so they worked very closely together.
Yeah, those were some fun years. My senior year, after Billy graduated, I played with Johnny and by and large mostly juniors, but it was a good bunch. We bonded. It was and we had a great run. Won a section championship and a league championship that year.
This is from Mike Graney. Both Bill and Mark were both very successful and very humble. As a much younger athlete, he looked up to both of you at 5'9", and he said, I also literally looked up to them. What I remember most is how they carried themselves on the court and off the court. They led by example. Haven't got to know them over the years, as good of basketball players as they were, they are even better people. And that's from Mike Graney, who I think is a superintendent at Bolton Valley, but I'm not really sure.
He's at Bolton Landing. He's retiring this year.
Okay.
His final year. I just saw an article. I spend 2 months on Lake George in the summer up there, so I get some of the local news and gossip when I'm back there. But yeah, he's retiring. Great guy. No, those were some kind words. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very kind. He's a really good person, and but his sister Colleen was in my class in high school, and Mike is a really good guy. His son is a very good athlete. His son is I believe, the leading scorer in Ticonderoga High School in basketball now. So, good athlete, really good person, and he's helped a lot of kids in his educational career. So,
his son is the all-time leading scorer at Ty right now.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, Evan. I think he is too.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever score 1,000 at Ticonderoga? Do you know of anyone?
I think Evan did for sure. I think Billy did
Evan
too.
Graney?
Yeah.
Yes. He was a good player.
Yeah.
Okay. Believe it or not, Plattsburgh High School has 0 that scored 1,000, which shows to some degree, and same as Ty, that there's a lot of unselfishness on both Ty and Plattsburgh High School. So I'm going to get to some funny stuff if you guys don't mind. Mac knows me, so he knows.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'll ask a serious question. Both of you, your toughest high school matchup. Who you feel you had the toughest time with when you played against them? We'll start with Mac.
Billy in practice was my toughest matchup.
Okay. How about another team?
Another team. We had a lot. The league was pretty good then. We had a lot of good matches. Probably Plattsburgh was the toughest matchup.
Who would you guard for Plattsburgh? Who? Was it Billy Sutton or Angelo or Guy Garrow? Okay.
Typically Ange.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How about you, Bill?
Yeah, I would say there were three. Coach Brissett mentioned South Glens Falls had two guys that were 6'5", and Tommy LaPointe and I. Tommy was 6'7", and we met, and Mark is, 6'4", 6'5", whatever you are, Mark. But you were a junior then, so most of that fell to me and Tommy, although you helped us a lot against them. And those were two really good matchups. And then Plattsburgh was tough. They had the Suttons, like I said. Saranac was good. They had the Rivettes, Mark and Troy Rivette. But the two that I really remember are Plattsburgh and Peru, because Peru had a kid named Brian Passano who ended up playing Division I football at Maine. He was about 6'5". And then Peter Ewald, the Ewald family in that area is kind of legendary.
Sure.
And Peter was a little bit more of a guard, but you're playing against two Division I athletes in that game in tie, and we beat them in a very tight game. I think it went to double or triple overtime, but that was a very tough game, and we ended up getting the win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ausable Valley was another team that those guys, they were just tough, scrappy kids, and they were a tough game every time we played them as a senior.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, Mark, and I should have mentioned, and I apologize to anybody from Ausable that might be listening, but I think I would say this about Ausable: they didn't necessarily have the best athletes. They had Keith Brillia, who was a very good basketball player, but they didn't necessarily have the best athletes. But they had an excellent coach in John Conowitz, and he always had, I'm sure Mark would agree with us, always had his kids ready to play tie, and that was kind of a rivalry. Ty and Mariah is a big rivalry, of course, but I don't remember junior, senior, or even your years, Mark, us losing to Mariah, so that sort of dipped off a little bit there.
Yeah.
Then it turned into more of like Ausable and Plattsburgh and schools up north.
MAI too.
MAI
and St. John's.
Stuff like that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we had to be ready for every game. I mean, Ticonderoga was probably the program at that point that everybody wanted to get at.
We had the target on our back for sure, no doubt.
I was coaching at St. John's, and Coach Brissett, he beat me handily at St. John's, so I'll never forget that game. But overall, how was it really growing up in Ticonderoga? I mean, what other things were there to do? When did they build that McDonald's? I had to ask that.
We were long gone, pal.
Okay. But what was there to do?
Yeah, I would say I loved growing up in Ty. It's for people that are from the city or the suburbs, you look at a place like that and you go, what do you do there? That's very natural for people to think that. But, as kids, you find your own ways to play. There's hunting, there's fishing, there's, swimming in the lakes, boating, water skiing, golf, all that kind of stuff. And, as Coach Brissett said, I was kind of, if I wasn't doing chores for my parents around our house, and we split our own wood, we cut our own grass, all that stuff for years. I was kind of married to basketball, like you said. So there was never a dull moment, if you would.
Mark, what did you do on your spare time other than basketball?
Like I said, in the summers was we had a big horse farm, so I was tied up with that even through the falls and the winter, right? I mean, you still got even though the camp's closed, we still had 40 horses, so involved with that a lot, and in the sun and then the lake as much as possible. There was all kinds of boating, water skiing, whatever, and just getting to the lake. And Ticonderoga is one of those towns that it's about 5,000 people, but in the summertime it goes to 2.5 times that number, because everybody, there's a lot of folks who have summer places up there, come up from Connecticut and the city, and all over the Northeast, and so you're just kind of out and about. Those are the best time of year. There's a lot of new faces in town, and it's it was a great place to grow up.
Are you guys? And I'm not really sure of this. And Is Ticonderoga on Lake George and Lake Champlain? Which is closer? Which one did you guys normally go in? Lake George or Lake Champlain?
Lake George.
Wow.
Yeah. The vast majority of Ticonderoga, I would say, is on Lake George versus Lake Champlain, yeah.
Right. Lake Champlain would be more Putnam in that area, Tom. But, yeah, my family, when I was growing up, my dad and my uncle and some of their friends built us a house on Eagle Lake, a small camp on Eagle Lake. So early on, I spent a lot of time on Eagle Lake in the summertime. And then we bought a place on Lake George in Hague, and we owned that for 43 years, just recently sold it in the last few years. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask some questions that I normally ask a lot of my guests, and I have to ask this to both you. LeBron or Michael? Which one?
Michael. Mike.
Bill?
Yeah, I would go with Jordan for sure.
Okay. Caitlin Clark or Paige Beckers?
Caitlin probably at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I would too, yeah.
All right. Darren Rathbun or John McDonald?
That's a dead heat.
Okay.
Mac's going to get himself in a lot of trouble with that one.
Yeah, dead heat right there. That's a tie game, all knotted up.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say they're both very good athletes in high school, but in terms of basketball, I would go with John McDonald because I don't think Darren played. So there, I'm off the hook.
Okay.
Yeah, they both play. They're both fantastic athletes.
Yeah.
And I think Mac knows this. I'm going to ask this one. Tom LaPointe or Dan Broad, who's winning that one-on-one matchup if they played one-on-one?
Oh, that's Tommy.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys had
Tommy,
some big
Tommy
guys in tie. Yeah.
We do. We got some fed farm milk, that fresh cow's milk, pal.
Well, I would say this about Tom LaPointe too, and I'm sure Mark remembers this. He was a big presence, on the court, and like any really good shot blocker, he was a good defender himself on the ball. But boy, when you were off the ball, if he was off the ball and you were still around there, he was excellent at blocking shots of guys that other people were guarding. He was really, really good at that, and a good rebounder too. He had length and long arms, and he's just a really good guy. He's been very successful in building. He lives in Hague now. He's a very good person, a happy person, and had a good life. So
yeah, no, Tommy's a great guy. I see him. I didn't get to see him this summer. I've seen him the last couple summers. Yeah, he was, like Billy said, he's a good shot blocker, good timing, and he probably heard help from me 3 or 4 times a game. Once I was beat, but he was a great teammate.
Do you think
he played Tom for John Conowitz at New Paltz?
Yes, he
college,
did.
So, yeah,
definitely. Do you think he's listening to Wiry in the Woods in Hague right now, Tommy LaPointe?
Yeah, I don't know if they get that reception there.
Okay, I have one last one, and I'm not even sure if you remember him. Johnny Johnson or Tom Lacey? Who wins that matchup?
Oh, come on, Tom. Ticonderoga guys, we bleed purple.
Okay.
Johnny was a good ball player. In fact, like I was saying about you, Tom, with the Adirondack camp and getting the kids started early, and Coach Brissett coming in and opening the gym and getting the young kids started, or Brian Cross having the young Vikings starting at 4th grade or whatever. That's the way you do it. And Mike Vigliotti was the coach when I was in 4th or 5th grade, and Mike Corbo and myself and a couple other guys got to be the ball boys for that championship team that they had with Mike Brandt and John Kerr Tony Bevelak and John Johnson. And Johnny Johnson was a hell of a point guard.
Yep.
And a good coach too. He coached down in
Dwaynesburg.
Auburn.
Dwaynesburg, yes.
Believe it or not, his sister also, like I was saying about Brian Cross's wife working with my dad, his sister Jeanette worked with my dad as a dental hygienist for 30 years, so I know the family quite well. But yeah, John Johnson was a hell of a player.
I remember going.
Tom, I got to give you props. You're a hell of a shooter too. I mean, I played in a lot of tournaments with Tom Bell, and he knocks down the good looks. He unfortunately takes some bad looks too, but he knocks
cut it out.
Good for you, Tom.
Yeah, Johnny Johnson. When I was a senior, we went to Ticonderoga, and the game went in overtime. But when I went up to when I went in the locker room to put my sneakers on during the JV game, someone had stolen my sneakers. So the JV team had already left. I had no sneakers to play, so I didn't play in that game. Although I don't think I would have played anyway. Who knows? But we had a guy named Joe Cardney who had 35, and Johnny Johnson guarded him, and we ended up beating them in overtime. And that's when Joe Cardney, who I think arguably is the best player ever in Section 7 history. That's just my opinion. But he got recruited. He got recruited by Union in that game. Bill Scanlon was at the game, and he said, "Yeah, we're gonna take Joe without a doubt." He became the all-time leading scorer there at Union. But I'll never forget that. Yeah, my sneakers were stolen, and someone got some sneakers.
I think Joe has them. Yeah. he scored 35 in your shoes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. I have to ask Mac this question, and when that car was taken from our house, everyone says that you were driving instead of Leo when you guys smashed into another vehicle. Who was really driving that vehicle? Was it Leo or was it you?
Who said that?
Everyone says that.
Leo was driving. I was in the passenger seat. He hit that other car. He ended up in my lap. Lacey's gonna kill me.
I heard otherwise. I heard you were driving, but
maybe. Those days were foggy, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Any funny stories you guys want to add right now? Anything that you remember that you want to just throw out there?
Yeah, I'll throw one out there. There's a little bit of cursing in it, the S word.
No, you can't say it.
I won't say it, but
okay.
But I'm just saying this is what somebody said. So we played. Mark was on the team. We played well our junior year, and as Mark was saying earlier, we were kind of the team to beat our senior year. And so we had the target on our back against everybody. And we played up at NAC, I believe it was. It was either NEC or NAC, which is a long ride away from Ty. And we get up there, and whoever the coach was at this school is talking to me and Jimmy Kent before the game. And he's talking about this kid from Peru, I believe it was, who was a sophomore. I think his name was Anthony Sampson.
Oh yes,
yeah.
yes.
And he ended up being a pretty good ball player, I think. Yep. He's behind me, so I don't really remember. But he was a sophomore, and this kid had just dunked on him. Mm-hmm. And he said, "This kid is the best player in the league. He dunks with authority, and he's only a sophomore." And I'm sitting there listening to this, and I'm like, okay, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I was player of the year last year. Mm-hmm. And I'm leading the league in scoring again this year, and we got the best team in the league, and you're kind of being disrespectful, and so it fired me up, and I ended up getting this steal, and it was one of those things as an athlete, I'm sure you both did this yourselves many times, but you don't even really think about it. It's just sort of instinct that takes over. I get the steal, and I go in and I just jam the ball two-handed, and there was nobody in the gym. Nobody was covering their basketball. And my friend Tommy LaPointe, who was on the bench, jumps up, grabs Coach Brissett by the shoulders, shakes him, and says, "Holy S, Coach! Did you see that?" and you don't talk to your coach that way, you know.
Yeah.
But it was just sort of impulsive on his part. So. And every time I see Tom LaPointe, I think, "Holy S, Coach! Did you see that?" You know.
Tommy's excitable. I love that. That dunk probably put us up 60. We were kind of fired up for that game.
Yeah.
Mac, did you get any dunks during your high school career?
I didn't get not a dunk my high school career.
Okay.
No. College some, but never in high school. I guess I was kind of a late bloomer physically.
Okay.
I graduated at like 6'4", 168 pounds.
Sure.
I really didn't get even close to 200 until I was a sophomore in college.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You ever get dunked on, either of you?
Oh God, if you played basketball, you've gotten dunked on for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
You're right.
Never in high school. I've been
Angelo
dunked on
didn't?
by,
I thought Angelo might have.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody even dunked against us in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember that. No. Angelo was a heck of a player, though. I'll tell you that. He was a good ball player.
Yep. Well, we're about to end up our show, and then I have some interviews that I did at Rucker Park with some NBA players and my players, and I'm going to play that after a break from. It'll be a commercial by Facet Realty, and he's any Neil's listening right now. Mac, anything you want to say to him right now?
I appreciate the questions, Neil. I expected worse, but all good stuff. Yeah, Neil's a great guy. I got to spend some time with him this summer. All those guys. And before we get off, I want to acknowledge you. You're doing some great stuff up there, Tom. And I know Bill talked about it earlier, but those camps and the Rucker and obviously this radio show, giving some of these high school kids some light is awesome, because I don't think they're getting the light we used to get.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that. I just enjoy doing it. I don't need any accolades or fanfare. I just enjoy doing it, and that's simple as that. That's what it's about. Yeah. Giving sneakers was to every camper. That was a difficult task. I don't think we're going to do that next year. Yeah,
you should. One bit of advice: maybe get off the fluorescent colors for the shirts. They'll sell better. You look like a road pylon in your Facebook post.
Stop that. You're getting some in on me. I'm the host. I could cut you off right now.
I know.
But
thanks for having us, man.
I really appreciate both of you. You're both class acts, and both of you will be friends forever, as far as I'm concerned. Mac, keep some of those funny posts on our group chat, and let's stay in touch. And hopefully, we'll be seeing each other soon. And Mark McIntyre and Bill Brennan, 2 Division I players, and it's great having you both. You guys take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Tom.
You.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back with more on the Tom Lacey Sports Hour after this.
At Facet Realty, our phones are ringing off the hook. Buyers are searching, but there's just not enough inventory.
Walt Frazier, I saw him walk by, former New York Knick, and I also interviewed our players, and I have a little trouble sometimes with my phone with playing these recordings, so just bear with me a little bit. I'm going to get as many of these recordings as possible. I believe the first person I have is Holcomb Rucker's son. I'm pretty sure, but I'll be able to figure that out when he's on there. So here we go. This is from Rucker Park in Harlem, New York City, when we went to Rucker Park and played against 2 excellent teams. Here we go.
I'm the son of Holcomb Rucker Park, and I am the oldest son of Holcomb Rucker. I grew up in this park. From the time I was born, I've seen many of the games with Dr. J, Connie Hawkins, and Earl Manigault was very close to me. I spoke at his funeral, and I spoke to with friends of Pee Wee Kirkland and Joe Hammond, as when I was a young man, I ran the tournament myself here, Phil Rucker Pro Tournament. I now have a corporation, Fundamental Community Solutions, and some of the people here are affiliated with me. I have Bob McCullough right there, his son on my board. I have Greg Maris's sister on my board, Lacey and Cheryl Marius, and I have myself on the board. So we have all of the families that have legacy at Rucker Park together for the first.
Okay, that was Holcomb Rucker. He was definitely someone that has been just been with Rucker Park forever, and he's a big person there that if you want to play at Rucker Park, you have to go through him first. Let's go with some of our players, and I'll be able to recognize who they are when they're on here, so just bear with me, please, okay? I'm doing the best I can on this, but I do want to get these in because they are pretty good. So
okay, Tom Lacey back at Rucker Park. Got another excellent player. I'm going to let him talk and say whatever you want.
Hey, how you doing? This Kareem Reed here, the best kept secret, big game Reed, man. One of New York street ball finest. Was just named one of New York City point guards. Was on the documentary. From the Bronx, New York. Went to St. Raymond's High School in New York. While attending St. Raymond's High School in New York, was selected to the McDonald All-American game. Played the McDonald All-American game in 1994. Went on to play the University of Arkansas, which I still hold the all-time assist leader at the University of Arkansas. Just got the news that I'm getting inducted to the Hall of Fame in September. After that, I wound up going overseas, but wound up playing overseas for 15 years in France, Italy, Spain, different countries, Venezuela, different countries.
Okay, that's a very good player. Here we go.
Hello, Tom Lacey. I'm interviewing some former college and professional players at Rucker Park right now, and here's one right now I'd like to interview. Just tell your name.
My name is Julius Allen.
And where did you play?
I grew up here in Harlem, and I eventually ended up playing at Oregon State and Southern Nazarene University, where I won the national championship.
What's your high game ever at Rucker Park?
Probably 30.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. You've been playing here a lot. Who was your toughest competition you ever guarded at Rucker Park?
It's an easy decision. Wow, I can't think of his name right now.
That's okay.
I'm drawing a blank, but he played Jim Bostic. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Jim Bostic was probably the best.
Okay, we'll get to some of our players now. I want to hear some of them. All right.
Okay, first of all, it's kind of loud in here. We got basketball going on. Zach's not a basketball player, but we got one of his guys that watched him all year and saw how well he played all year. And what you talk about, Zach Lapeer, this is Nate Parliament.
Yeah, no, I've played with Zach for
we got the wrong, I'm going to cut that one off. Sorry. Okay. That was from something else. I'm so sorry on that.
Okay, Tom Lacey back at Rucker Park. Got another excellent player. I'm going to let him talk and say whatever you want.
Oh, okay. Couple more.
Hello, Tom Lacey. I'm interviewing some former college and professional players at Rucker Park right now. And here's one right now I'd like to...
One more. I'm going to try to get one of our players on there, and I'm looking for it. And just again, bear with me. I'm very sorry about this. Here we go. This might be one right here.
Hello, Tom Lacey. I'm interviewing some former college and
it might be a repeat
at Rucker Park right now. And here's one right now I'd like to to interview. Just tell your name.
My name is Julius Allen.
And where did you play?
I grew up
Okay,
here.
I already had him. The one thing I would like to say, though, is that when I did interview my players, and for some reason I can't find it on here, but I'm not the best on the phone, but every single one of them said if we played best out of 7 against these guys, we would win 4-2. Every single player said that, even though despite we lost the games, these guys were so confident. And the one guy, well, I'd like to recognize every single one of them. They all played so hard, and I made a coaching error there because I didn't even realize it was a NBA 3-point line. And we have some really good shooters too that went with us. And I noticed that they were coming up short every single time. Our shots were coming up short. And then after the first game, I said, wonder what's going on. And sure enough, NBA 3-pointer. So that it's very difficult for high school kids to adjust to that. I know in that first game we went 0 for 15 from the 3-point line. And that's probably one of the reasons why we lost the game. The second game, we played very tough. The crowd was very, very impressed by everything about our team, especially the sportsmanship. And I do remember the right off the tap in the very first game, we got the tap, and it went to Tom from Tupper Lake, Tom Peterson, who's going to be already is an excellent player. And he's 5'11", and I'm saying, all right, we're off to 2-0 start, and he's going to lay it in. He goes up and tries to dunk so hard with one hand, and it bounced up, and it didn't go in. And when he came down the court, he just apologized. He felt bad for it, but they were pretty impressed by that. So when we go back next year, we are going to be we're going to be ready. We're going to practice. We're going to probably add a couple more players. They do want us to get a girls high school team there as well. So that's in the works, and just stay in touch with me on this. I think my email address is irishhoopster, 2 H's and 2 O's, irishhoopster@aol.com, to see who might be interested in that. And we'll kind of, as a high school season goes on, we'll see who is ready, especially for the girls, who wants to go. And we usually stay in Terrytown at the Marriott, and it's only a 43-minute drive by the train right in front of the Empire State Building, and which isn't far from all the places, and it's so much fun. I didn't go into the city. I just stayed back at the hotel and just relaxed. But what a great time, and hopefully we can get it done next year. I'm hoping. The guys were phenomenal. They loved going into the city. Their sportsmanship, everything about what they did, it was pretty impressive, and they represented the North Country very well. It was the very first North Country team that ever played at Rucker Park, and they should be proud. So I'm going to end the show for now, or for today, and we'll be working on our next guest. Right now, I have a few people in mind, and I'll probably announce it on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I'd like to thank everyone. And we would like to get some more sponsors for our show. If you are interested, please contact WIRY Tammy, and she'll get you guys set up. It's not really too expensive. It's well worth it. Wiry is listened to so many people in the North Country, more than people think. And just want to thank everyone. Okay, take care.